People have asked me how I made it to almost 200,000 followers on TikTok, and I think one of the answers is a little counterintuitive, and I wanted to explain it to you briefly. It is to make a video in your pajamas. I really mean it. Literally your pajamas, but also metaphorically your pajamas. Now, this is going to be different for everyone, but just like, let me break this down. A perfectionist to the point that I will be paralyzed and not make content. I have conquered that perfectionism on TikTok and on Instagram. I have not yet conquered that perfectionism on YouTube, as evident by the fact that I have hundreds of thousands of people following on one and almost no one on the other. I want you to make a video in your pajamas because I want you to deliberately lower the standard of the quality of your video for the sake of getting lots of practice in. I have lived this, and I want to look at like the difference of when I tried to start on YouTube versus when I tried to start on TikTok and Instagram. And I can really point to like two videos. On YouTube, I made several video essays, and each of these video essays took me, like, honestly, months to make. I've edited and scripted and voiceover and corrected and got footage and B-rolled and transitions, and I polished these so much. But I could truly only make like one every month or two, or usually 2 or 3 months, because I had things going on. I was being so meticulous. Each of those videos got maybe a couple of thousands of views. Comparing this to TikTok, what I did and do on TikTok is talk about the thing that I am most interested in as much as I humanly possibly can make myself do it. And doing it in my pajamas, literally I roll out of bed, I haven't put on my hair, I haven't done those things yet. That I did, one, out of time necessity, but two, because if I put on the formalness and the formality and the like, I'm gonna get a proper TikTok done, and I try to get the studio light perfect, and I tried to get like the ISO perfect, I don't even know whether that's coming through, the like exposure perfect and the colors perfect and all these things. If I try to get all these things perfect, then I would just not produce anything, or I produce one video every couple of months. Part of how I did well on TikTok is just repeat at-bats, practice, go, get data on what works for you and get data on what doesn't. And you don't do that if the pace of your uploading reflects perfectionism. There are a couple different authors that helped me understand this. One of them is Atomic Habits author James Clear. I honestly don't enjoy citing all that much because everyone talks about him, but an earlier version is Switch by the Heaths, well, two different Heaths, Chip Heath and Dan Heath, as well as Cal Newport's So Good That They Can't Ignore You. These three books helped push my thinking a little bit in terms of like just getting your freaking reps in. And it sounds silly, but like, this is not some of the advice that YouTubers give and that people give about growing your platform is just normal, regular, like that checks out. Some of it's bonkers, some of it's true. One that I find to be quite true is that your first 10 videos are gonna suck. And the same thing is true on TikTok, except more so. Your first 20 or 30 or 40 videos are gonna suck on TikTok. So like, let the pressure off, and instead of filming expecting it to do well, film it in your pajamas and just get the reps in. The second piece of advice is the concept of authenticity, and this word gets thrown around a lot, but I keep learning this lesson over and over again. The marketplace changes in the attention economy, and for a while 60 seconds matters more, and then 3 minutes matters more, and then vertical matters, and then vertical doesn't matter, and things change constantly, and like being adaptable to the algorithm and the changing market conditions is part of why like lots of reps is better than like really calculated, stilted, perfect moves. But I have found over the course of 2.5 years of doing this that the videos that do best are the videos where I say, this is just the thing that I am most interested in. I am real into this thing and I would like to tell you about it. And it's when I'm doing that that I pull the most authentic part of me and put it into the video. For me, that means reading books, but more specifically, it means, this is not the best example where I like talking about these books because I lump all these together as like sort of whatever, this relatively repetitive self-help concepts. I should be more respectful of them while I'm citing them in public, but what is truly my style compared to other people is less just talking about one book, but instead making connections across several books, talking about predictive policing models and the concept of weathering, for instance, tying the concept of weathering to I got too many stacks of books. Normally I know where they are, but I've moved a desk around recently, and so things are in different spots. Fatal Invention by Dorothy Roberts. Imagine that here. I'm not normally in a position to lose books, but whatever. We're filming videos in our pajamas. Drawing connections across books is, oh, there it is. It's literally hiding underneath Brian Stevenson and Kimberly Jones. Drawing connections between the concept of weathering in Dr. Ruha Benjamin's book and Dr. Roberts' book, Fatal Invention, making those connections clear to a person, which I'm not doing here because it's an example, and then drawing connections to an entirely different way of thinking, like maybe algorithmic bias that most people are not necessarily familiar with. That to me is the most exciting thing, is making those connections across multiple different domains of thought and smashing them together in a satisfying way. I naturally want to do that anyway. And over the last 2 years of uploading content online, doing that most consistently is the thing that gets people most excited about the content that I'm doing. So when people say authenticity, that can mean a lot of things, but let me change that question, which is to say, what is the thing that is most exciting for you to do most consistently? What is the thing that you would do even if no one was paying you to do it? To me, it would be reading and making connections. Excuse me. To me, it would be reading. Got the hiccups. To me, it would be reading and making connections across books, and like sharing that element is the most authentic thing to me. And I often, to go back to the first point about doing videos in your pajamas, I often don't capture that authenticity when I'm trying to be formal, get the white balance right, get the shot framed up properly, make sure the table's not jiggling, is the audio balanced, all these things. I get distracted by those technical details and I don't actually show up to the video. So do videos in your pajamas and show up authentically are like the two big ones. But the two, well, I'll say three actually. The three things that I hear that I have not. To wrap all this up, I want to actually name three more things. One is a mistake that I made myself that I actually have seen other creative types make, and two more I'll get to in a second. The mistake that I've made is not understanding the spikiness of the algorithm. TikTok specifically, we've discovered like heats certain videos. It says, oh, this video is amazing. We're going to click a button so that it gets like artificially more views than expected. Early in my YouTube career, I had a video that did really well, and I let my expectations of the rate of growth of the channel be changed by that initial spike. Engagement comes in fits and starts and spikes, and to make that into an engine, you need consistent spikes, which I don't know. I just like the engine metaphor because it's just many controlled explosions. But the reason that I'm bringing this up is I made the mistake very early on in my career of thinking that if I had one video do really well, I had another video that's going to be doing really well just right around the corner. And that's not always true with how spiky things are. In reality, it often is a slow grind to a spike and then another slow grind, slower than you want, to another spike. And so not being super emotionally invested in how any one individual video does can help weather those distinctions. But I said two more things, so let's keep going. The next is changes to the algorithms. Many of these algorithms are being developed in front of us, right? I gave the example in a previous short where we were talking about predictive policing algorithm, PredPol, that was being used, cited in Dorothy Roberts' book, Race After Technology. It's a new technology that's being developed, and it seems to be over-policing black neighborhoods digitally, in addition to with the real resources of the police department. Algorithms are constantly changing, and particularly in a landscape where TikTok's algorithm disrupts YouTube and Instagram and YouTube are reacting every couple of weeks. Sometimes it's slower, every couple of months. The priorities of the institutions that we are uploading to change, and we have no insight into that. We're talking about these algorithms all the time. Algorithms are inscrutable. AI is inscrutable. It's a thing we can talk about in other videos. We don't get to know those decisions that they're making, and so repeat upload and like lots of content creation, pajama videos at a more consistent basis as a strategy can help get you more data as the algorithms change. I've found that to be quite helpful. Certain things will perform differently over the broad time structure, and just like being ready for changes in the market of the attention economy and being okay with what used to work not working in the future. You understand what I'm saying? That's part of the game too, and that emotional roller coaster of that. It's hard to weather, but it's important to recognize. And the last thing that I will say is advice I've honestly not heard from Crooked Media or from Vanessa Lau or from anyone. Maybe they've said it and I've missed it in the videos, but I don't hear creative people explaining just how important it is to have a community of like-minded people around you. The internet is an intensely lonely place, and being able to spend time with certain individuals and develop and grow together is invaluable. On TikTok specifically, I have connected with many mutuals, and those mutual relationships have helped strengthen. My content has been strengthened by interacting with them, and more to the point, I have a sense of community and someone to vent to when like TikTok decides for a month that I'm just going to go from getting tens of thousands of views to getting hundreds of views. I have people around me for solidarity. I don't hear the advice that you need a community of people to succeed on the internet, because the internet feels like a very lonely place, even though we get parasocial lots of connections, but a lot of those parasocial connections are not fulfilling. So like having people that you perceive as peers and that you connect with as peers as you move through that journey is, to me, critically important. And I don't normally like to brag, which is ironic because I'm literally talking to cameras all the time and I'm very whatever. But those communities might take work to create. I've been learning this from certain people. So this book, Breeding Sweetgrass, talks about ecosystems. This book, How We Show Up, talks about building community with each other. And I usually have another desk. That's why I can't find the books. I had a desk that I used to have here, and that has moved, and my brain memory is a little wonky. But we've also been working on Platonic, which is a collaboration project that is coming out soon on May the 26th at 2 p.m. Central. You're invited to join. There's details in the previous video. Those connections are sustaining, and we succeed together, not as individuals. And so having that community around you can be really valuable. And I didn't brag, I tried to avoid it. One of the things that I have done as a creator, type, influencer, whatever, is I have actually like intentionally built relationships with other creators. I invest time and energy in those relationships, and even though it hasn't, like, we've done some collaborations, like I don't get tons more views out of those relationships. What I get is a sense of community that sustains me through those dry spells of the algorithmic up and down, and that's worth more than a 5% bump on an occasional whatever, which I think is super important. And it's not just me thinking it's super important, it's literally lots of research. Community building and showing up for each other is something that is necessary for like long-term survivability, and it's part of why I know I'm being disrespectful and dismissive of like Atomic Habits and Switch and Cal Newport and Deep Work, and like, because a lot of this philosophy is like improve yourself in solitude. And I think that while that is true, like iron sharpens iron in community, but also like we're animals and like we need lights just changed. We're gonna leave it in because we're in our pajamas, metaphorically. Jeans on right now, I promise. like most of these, I'm sorry, I'm getting distracted. Most of these books are oriented towards like just improve alone by sheer force of will. And I think that there's merit to that, even merit to that in perhaps a different direction. Like somebody like Raina Maria Rilke talks about solitude. In Letters to a Young Poet, letter 8, he talks about how we often need plenty of time alone. And that time alone does sharpen us. So I don't want to be too disrespectful and too dismissive of like internet boyos who tell me to improve myself in silence and solitude, because there is merit to that, and there is a place for that. But I think that broadly construed, creators like Ali Abdaal and creators like many of in Crooked Media, many of these people overemphasize the role of individuality in the development of skills. Creativity is a skill, and you cannot go to college to become a YouTuber, but you can find people that you can work with and connect with to help sustain you in the long run. So those are my things. I've talked for so long, I can't make you a bulleted list. Maybe we can go reverse. This is useless, but we're gonna try it anyway. Not going back at the footage. A community is one, having a community is one of them. Recognizing that the algorithmic marketplace is gonna change and things are gonna be up and down. The spikiness of things. I don't know why I'm doing this. I could make a list. Editing sounds. There's the things. Those are the things that we talked about. And I keep saying it because it's important. Like lowering the bar of adapting to changes in the attention economy. Lowering the bar for your content. In the beginning to get over perfectionism, because the reality is, like, if you're just starting out, nobody's gonna watch them anyway, and sometimes even if you've been going for a while, they're not gonna watch them anyway. So cool. That concludes thoughts of how did I make it to 200,000 followers on the short form video websites. I got 40,000 on IG and 180 on Clock Daddy, Clock app. Great. And because I cannot just like talk about something, I have to make a point out of it, make a lesson out of it, connect stuff together. While we shouldn't dismiss solitude, we also shouldn't dismiss community. The last thing that I will say is, in a meta sort of sense, this me rambling at you right now, this is me doing a YouTube video in my pajamas. And I can't guarantee it because the algorithm is spiky. But like, please check back in 6 months, because the strategy of getting lots of at-bats, this is not my advice at this point, I've heard this from many creators, getting lots of at-bats, getting lots of data. I'm not gonna do that on YouTube. I literally, we're being meta, we're breaking from the whatever. I just spent circa an hour shooting a YouTube video about that is like scripted and formal and whatever, and my standard is so high that I got frustrated with myself halfway through the video and I couldn't finish it. So I mean that as a literal sense, that like, this is something that I consistently struggle with, and despite the fact that I have plenty of practice doing it on TikTok and Instagram, I don't have the muscle yet for YouTube. So this me making this video talking to you right now is trying to develop that muscle, lowering my standard for YouTube, so that I can get that practice in. And I, fingers crossed, think that it's gonna work. But check back. Maybe that's a strategy for short form and not long form. And I'll come back and I'll recant. I'm Charlie. This is That Makes Sense to Me. Thanks for hanging out with me while I rambled and played with a lot of different authors' ideas. Talk to you in the next one, and happy reading.